What is going on, everybody? Welcome into another episode of Caught Stealing, the Fantasy Alarm Fantasy Baseball Podcast. I'm your host, Howard Bender. And for those of you watching here on the YouTube live stream, well, guess what? I'm all by myself today. Colby Conway out of the country doing his thing. And so I figured I would keep the show rolling here for everybody this week. And I've got a little help coming my way because a little later on here, Joe Gallina from Fantasy Alarm, he handles the closer grid and the bullpen report for us. So, I think one of the things that we're going to have to start kind of going through here a little bit closer as far as what some of these situations entail. We haven't had a lot of turnover, so to speak, of the closer position. Usually by this point, we're like, we just lost, 40% of the closers. That hasn't been the case this year for the most part. But there are a number of bullpens that we're going to have to take a little bit deeper of a dive into it, not to mention the fact that a lot more leagues are turning to saves plus holds, which I am 100% for. That's the Tout Wars league that I'm in. As annoying as that's been with, again, if we've talked about this over and over again with me and Colby, the injury bug just absolutely waylaying all of us. We are just getting abused. Now, on top of that, in addition to some of the injuries, we're also dealing with a lot of underperformers. And these are guys who I've, kind of staked my season on. And, listen, it happens. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. I'm not going to sit here and say that I win fantasy baseball leagues every single year, but because that doesn't happen. I'm sitting here right now in danger of actually being relegated in the FSGA, the Fantasy Sports and Gaming Association League, just 2 years after winning the whole thing. So, listen, that's the way it goes. That's the way the cookie crumbles, the ball bounces, however you want to do it. But I'm not going to sit here and lament over that. But obviously, we talked last week about how you fix a broken team and what you have to do. And one of the things that I'm actually doing in that FSGA league is I'm going to continue to take that hit in strikeouts and wins, but I'm going to push for relievers. I'm going to push for WHIP and ERA. And again, at this point right now, do I think that I have a chance of winning it? No, because offensively, I just don't have the stats for it. What I need to do, and that's how you kind of have to ballpark it. Listen, if you're in a head-to-head league, and I'm in a head-to-head league with my buddy Trace, who, if you guys have ever listened to the Fantasy Alarm Show, he's called in a bunch of times. I'm in that head-to-head league, and I'm sitting towards the bottom of the standings, but that's a league where I know all I'm looking for is sixth place, right? I just need to make it into the playoffs at that point, and then we'll just see what happens. That's just the nature of head-to-head fantasy baseball. In a roto league, it's a lot different. So what I really need to do is I just need to attack certain categories just to make sure that I'm not one of those bottom four teams that's going to be relegated. So we're going to do that through the bullpen, and Joe Gallina is going to help shed some insights into a number of closing situations, as well as possibly some middle relievers that might kind of just help boost that ratio, your ratios, while augmenting your strikeout category. I feel like you got to punt the two categories if you really want to make that move and then see what happens. So I might end up even starting to trade some of my starting pitching away in order to grab some offensive power. So more on that to come. But again, lots to talk about here on the show today. In addition to the closer conversation, we're also going to talk MLB prospects and do a little check-in here. I see this all the time in the Fantasy Alarm Discord. Tons of people asking. It's basically you're sitting there gunning for whoever the flavor of the week is. You know what the prospect list is. We've got that prospect list over at fantasyalarm.com. You see who's getting called up. You see who's getting buzz. Everybody wants to stash the next big thing, but sometimes it works for you. Sometimes it doesn't. Shout out to Lenny Melnick, the legend of fantasy sports, where he said he's like, a rookie is a rookie is a rookie is a rookie. And that's just, sometimes it wins, sometimes they don't, and we look at that, look at Aaron Judge's first call up, Mike Trout's first call up. Now, some guys dominate in their first year. I remember when Juan Soto came up for his first year, was phenomenal. Helped me win the NL only labor league that year. So we'll check in on some of the other rookies and see what's happening there. We can talk about anything that you guys want. As always, if you have fantasy baseball questions, if you are in the Discord, you can always hit up me and Colby. You can also find me on Twitter at RotoBuzzGuy. You can even email me at rotobuzzguy@gmail.com. Colby Conway at Colby R. Conway. And we'll always dive in and answer all those questions. All the guys over at Fantasy Alarm will do that for you. Now, I wanted to start off today's show. It's kind of funny because what's buzzing in the news right now is all the Paul Skenes trade talk. And I found it really interesting. I was talking to Jim Bowden on the show earlier tonight, and I'll share some of those thoughts. But for me, I mean, it really seems to have picked up where I think it was a Yankees fan who wore a Paul Skenes Yankees jersey to Pittsburgh in order to kind of troll the Pirates that Skenes was going to be a Yankee. Yeah, I get that. The problem here is that you're on two sides of a coin. Trade Paul Skenes, don't trade Paul Skenes. If you talk to any Pittsburgh Pirates fan, they'll tell you absolutely not. You don't trade Paul Skenes, generational talent. But, having this conversation with Jim earlier really kind of, it sheds a little bit of light, especially because of the situation that you see the Pirates, as well as some other teams involved, are dealing with right now. The Pirates offense looks terrible. You've got O'Neal Cruz, you've got Brian Reynolds, and even Brian Reynolds is a little overrated. All right. You don't have anybody else there. Brian Hayes doesn't hit for any kind of power. He's fine on defense. But you look at any of the other players, their middle infield is always an absolute disaster. And they just don't have anybody because their team doesn't want to spend any money. Ben Cherington, the GM, his hands are tied. This all comes down to Bob Nutting. And, we've all seen the memes on social media. Bob Nutting should sell the team. That's what Pirates fans want. They need somebody to sink some money into it. So the question is, you've got a guy like Bob Nutting who understands that people are going to come and watch Paul Skenes pitch. So why am I going to trade him away? Is that going to turn around my franchise? It can turn around your franchise, but Bob Nutting, just keep some butts in the seats and we'll work it out that way and we'll see what happens. Maybe he does believe that once Bubba Chandler is there and maybe Jared Jones gets healthy, that maybe they'll have the three best starters in Major League Baseball and they'll be able to kind of get by on offense. It doesn't work that way. It's never worked that way, right? We've never seen a team that just, has this dominant pitching and has no offense whatsoever. We've seen dominant pitching before, but there's still some bats that have to, kind of maneuver there as well. So, I don't know about you guys here, but for me, when you look at it as seeing an owner that doesn't want to put any money into the product, well, then my feeling is that, yes, you need to trade Paul Skenes and you need to trade him now. Don't trade him in a year when he's going to need Tommy John surgery. Don't trade him in 2 years when, or try to deal him, like out of desperation that you're going to lose him come free agency. And then where are you going to be at? You're going to get, for nothing. If you genuinely want to turn your franchise around, it's a move that has to be made because turning your franchise around when you're not putting any money into it is a long, lengthy process. You guys out there, right? You guys pick up dynasty orphan teams all the time. You know why those teams are orphans? Because they suck. And the person who just threw everything against the wall, hoping something would stick, just doesn't want to pay any money into that league anymore, doesn't want to carry this team anymore, because the process of rebuilding a big dynasty team is as lengthy as it is in reality. It's going to take you 4 or 5 years in order to really do something. Now, what's Paul Skenes going to be like in 4 or 5 years? I don't know. Is he going to be with the team? Because even if you trade Paul Skenes now, and I think Jim said it best when he was like, you go to the Dodgers. I know. I don't want that either. But you go to the Dodgers and you get, 4 prospects and 3 currently playing position players. Who did he say? He said, I think it was Tony Gonsolin, Andy Pages, Dustin May, and then your top prospects, in your system, and that gets you Paul Skenes. Now, if you're the Pittsburgh Pirates, is that a is that an offer that really kind of hits you? Dustin May and Andy Pajes, and I mean, I like Pajes. Don't get me wrong. I think he's a good, solid fantasy guy. He's not somebody that I'm building completely around, but when you look at that kind of a situation there, I don't think that moves the needle. But if you get the 4 prospects and you are willing to put some money into it, it'll take time. It'll take time. It'll take 4 or 5 years to make yourselves a more competitive team, but it is doable. It's much more doable than sitting there waiting on Paul Skenes, or just hoping that he's going to still be there in 4 or 5 years. He's not going to be. But the problem is, and I think that that this definitely does, and this is how that conversation kind of spilled into, is that you've got these teams that are, I'm not going to say unfixable, but when you look at the White Sox, and you look at the Rockies, and you look at the Pirates, and you wonder where did it go wrong? What happened with these teams? Why are these teams all just, I mean, this isn't like you're talking about like the Blue Jays or the Orioles, where it's just, you've got great players over there. You're just underperforming, or you need starting pitching like Baltimore does, but nothing's saving these teams. You need major offense to fix Pittsburgh, and you have to get rid of Paul Skenes to do it, because you're not going to pay free agent money to get somebody, to lure somebody over to Pittsburgh. The team's just not going to do that. So how do you end up fixing a team like that? And it becomes really tough. And from a fantasy standpoint, because obviously this is a fantasy baseball podcast, it's very difficult to kind of to look at these teams and feel like you can even make an investment. The Rockies are terrible right now. Do you remember when Coors Field was like a fantasy wet dream? And you're like, oh my goodness, I'm getting this guy who plays half his games in Coors Field. Nolan Arenado's half his games in Coors Field. Carlos Gonzalez half his games in Coors Field. Even Troy Tulowitzki back in the day, half his games in Coors Field. It was amazing. Right now, I think the Rockies have like the 3rd lowest run output of any team in Major League Baseball right now, and they're playing half their games in Coors Field. It's an atrocity. It really is. They're never going to do well because they never target the right pitchers. All right. And their offense can do well, but I mean, they just don't have anybody right now. It's all these, also rans, right? I think you got Brenton Doyle, you got Ezekiel Tovar. I don't think there's anybody else there. How many years did they have to go with like McMahon and who was the other middle infielder there? Either way, I mean, the Rockies are just, I mean, that's a hot mess right now. And that's a fantasy wasteland for you and me. That's disappointing in its own right. That's a huge, huge problem. And the White Sox are dealing with that also. They might have a little bit better of a farm system than the Rockies do, but overall, like, this is terrible. And you don't even want anybody. I mean, listen, I get it. Lewis Robert is stealing bases, but Lewis Robert has been dragging you down in the worst possible way, right? We were over guys like Billy Hamilton, who could only steal bases. We don't have burners like we did in the old days, where you had a guy who could steal 60 to 70 bases and then, and at least earn his keep, hit for a decent average. Now it's like, you get these guys like batting 211, and it's just, it's an absolute disaster. So how to fix these teams? I have no idea how to fix these teams. I mean, I genuinely don't believe you can, but I'll say this. I do think that if you are a team like the Pittsburgh Pirates, if you genuinely want to fix this team, and I'm saying this like in like the you in the generic sense. I'm not saying this in like, you Bob Nutting, because you Bob Nutting obviously don't care what kind of product you put on the field. You're treating this as like a business investment. You're making some money. You're lining your pockets. You don't really care what's sitting on the field. We get that. But man, I'll tell you what, man, if he ever sells this team, at least let it be to somebody who's going to put like some money into the players. Because if you're not going to do that, then guess what? Just trade Paul Skenes now. Do it. Take the hit. Take the public hit. Do it. And then in 5-6 years, if it does actually end up panning out for you, well, then You can say, look at that. I did this and I was right. I wasn't afraid to take that risk, but I don't think Bob Nutting can handle the heat from everybody else. We'll talk more on stuff like this, but I want to do myself and you guys actually a much bigger favor here, and that is getting my ugly mug in a little bit smaller of a box on this screen and bringing in the beautiful face of Joe Gallina. What's up, Joe? Look at that. See, Joe Gallina wearing a New York Yankees jersey to show up. Joe, let me ask you this first and foremost. Are you is that a Paul Skenes Yankees jersey? Are you one of the people who are trolling everybody with that?
No, this is a number 99, Aaron Judge.
Oh,
So
that fella, he's
yeah,
pretty good.
He's okay. He's all right. He's no Soto, but
Oh,
man,
did you listen? You're over there. Did you go to any of the games over the weekend?
no, I didn't have a chance to go. Watched every one though, and my son-in-law is a big Mets fan, and I'm in and out of Mets games. I watch just about every Yankee game, and what I've noticed with Soto this year is he doesn't seem to be his aloof, fun-loving kind of self. When I watch him. So I asked my future brother-in-law, I says, do you see him yapping to the pitcher, nodding and to the, he says, yeah, I see it. But I'll be honest with you, every time I've watched him, he doesn't seem very comfortable in Met pinstripes. And man, you should have heard the local New York radio programs today. They're just ready they're like, oh no, it's here we go again. It's like Bobby Bonilla all over again and Vince Coleman all over again. Everyone who comes into wears a Met jersey seems to have some issues. But I wish him the best. I wish the Yankees would have signed him, but see ya.
It was really funny. The Yankees offered comparable money.
Sure.
Soto turned around and said that he thought the Mets had a better chance of winning the World Series, which is why he went over there. That's basically what he's saying by signing over there for similar money. I said it earlier today. Biggest heel turn since Andre the Giant hit Hulk Hogan.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
It's unbelievable because listen, I absolutely loved what the Yankees fans did. I loved what the Bleacher Creatures did.
Yeah.
Right? Yes. The chance of F. Juan Soto notwithstanding. Turning your back on him as he's coming out into right field was the money move.
And it obviously the whole weekend got to him because I'm sure you've heard that he was supposed to be mic'd up in the second inning in the field and he begged off. So, he says, I'm tired of, answering why I've left and whatnot. But, the stories that are coming out now is like, his family kind of pushed him into making the decision to leave the Mets. And if you believe Michael Kay, who's the play-by-play announcer for the Yankees, he thinks that Soto was glum in the club, in the Mets clubhouse. I don't know. But look, you think back to when he got traded from the Nationals to the Padres. And for that first, almost like a full season, he was batting .250. I think he had less than 30 home runs. But look, Met fans are a little upset right now, but the guy we know, you and I know, we've watched him play, right? He could turn it on and bat .420 for 2 months and nobody will remember this.
Right. It's an old fantasy strategy there. The smart system from Rick Wolf and Glenn Colton. You don't draft a guy who's signing this big ass contract that he's got to live up to and everything. And, it definitely makes sense. And yeah, listen, Juan Soto is just way too talented of a player to really to go in the tank. Now, this affecting him mentally, Mets fans getting down on him, the way he just got treated, goes up to Boston, doesn't run out, what he thought was a home run. Like all of that kind of adds up and will weigh on him, and he'll continue to ruin, at least for the first half of this season. I think he comes back after the All-Star break and snaps back out of it, but you're not getting the Juan Soto stats that you thought you were getting when you drafted him.
Absolutely not. And again, I wanted the Yankees to sign him, and I don't wish him ill will, but you look at what we've got in Judge, and I was a little worried about Judge in terms of that. he was going to be focused on in that lineup. But the guy's just amazing. He's just
Oh, that is, I mean, again, Juan Soto, you had, like,
yes.
that's the thing. Like, Joe, and yes, okay, folks out there, yeah, you're going to get a little East Coast bias / love, whatever you want. This is what happens when you put two Yankee fans in the room together,
Yeah.
all right? But the bottom line is that this guy, Juan Soto, what he had at his fingertips, you're talking about the most historic franchise in all of sports, the New York Yankees.
Mm-hmm.
New York City, the biggest media market, anything and everything you could possibly have, embraced him, loved him, and like really, and you had the chance to be like Juan Soto and Aaron Judge, like that's bigger than Maris and Mantle.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Right?
Yep,
I mean, that's bigger than Maris and Mantle. And that's, you had the chance to be revered like Derek freaking Jeter, for crying out loud, right? Look at what we've done for Donnie Baseball, right? I mean, even in his, in his coaching career and everything like that, the man can't walk down New York City and pay for a meal because nobody wants to charge Donnie Baseball or Derek Jeter or anybody like that. And he snubbed it.
Yep.
And he snubbed it, thinking that he could just go over to the Mets and be like the top guy over there and lead them to the championship. So, you know what, Joe? I'm not going to let him off so easy as you are. Screw you, Juan Soto. You deserve it.
Yeah, I hear you. But
you bat 226 for the rest of the season.
I'll tell you, when he's not on your team, you kind of hate him. Not hate him, but before he came to the Yankees, I mean, I knew how great he was. I just thought he was like a hot dog, but then when you watch him play and he's acting like a hot dog, you kind of like, you smile and you're like, wow, this guy's great. And,
but you know what? They talk about guys like, even like Jackson Churio. Remember his first year? Like they were like, well, is he dogging it? Is he not trying? There are some guys who just make it look effortless.
Right.
What they're doing. Juan
Robinson
Soto
Cano. Robinson Cano used to do that, right? Man, we're talking a lot of Yankee baseball here.
Why wouldn't we? Why would? Because everybody loves a winner, don't they? Unless, of course, you're talking about the Yankees bullpen. And so that's a perfect segue into it here, because Joe Gallina, he does all of the bullpen report and the closer grid over at fantasyalarm.com. If you don't subscribe, by the way, fantasyalarm.com/win, promo code Let's Go. That'll give you 50% off your first month. Dude, with all the betting and the season long and the DFS work, more than you're going to pay for your subscription inside that first couple of weeks there. So Joe's stuff is in there, and Joe's stuff is absolutely fantastic. Let's start with the closer talk here, Joe, because I need to rebuild my FSGA team. I at least need to rebuild my pitching staff, because I'm not going to get relegated, and I'm going to need to look at bullpens and relievers and stuff like that. Now, obviously, I'm going to try and make some trades for some top closers, but there are a number of situations that I do think are ripe for the pickings. The question is do you find the right guy? And we'll start with the Yankees here, because the question is Devin Williams, right? Is he going to be able to take that job back? Is Luke Weaver the guy? I look at this bullpen and I see opportunity. I don't love anybody really like standing out to me, but how do you see this thing shaking out?
Well, Weaver obviously took over the closer role late last season after Clay Holmes, had his issues, wrote it out and took us through the playoffs, having a great season, 0.44 ERA, 0.59 whip coming into Tuesday's action. I see him holding on to the job for a while. I think the Yankees have a deep bullpen. Have you seen Fernando Cruz in action? Oh my God, 35 Ks in just under 24 innings pitched. Love him. We have Jonathan Loaizaga back. Do I see Williams getting the closer job back at all this season? With all the volatility that's inherent in the closer position, anything's possible. But you know what? In 8 of his last 9 appearances, he hasn't given up a run. Looks like he's really falling into place as the setup guy. And if you remember, I mean, he was an effective closer in Milwaukee, but he was also great behind Hader.
Mhm.
So in a way, with Weaver pitching as well as he has been, and why fix something that's not broken? And I just saw a recent article, I think this afternoon, where Boone said, not yet. He's not going to move Williams back into the closer's role just yet. But you know, the guy is a free agent too. I also saw some rumors about him. I don't know if it was just real or not, but it was in a few different sites of him being a possible trade target for the Phillies. He's a free agent at the end of
Ooh,
the year.
interesting. Very interesting. All right. If you're in a, let's say you're in a saves holds league,
Hmm.
who's the guy you want from that Yankees bullpen? Is it Weaver? Is it Devin Williams? Or is it Fernando Cruz?
Hmm. Um, if Williams, if Weaver is available, he's my number one guy. But in saves and holds, you know what? I think I would go Cruz, because you're not only getting, the holds, and he has two saves, and I think he could get, a spattering more, but just those strikeouts too, that you're going to be, he's going to help you in that category as well. So Cruz is my guy.
Okay. Another bullpen that's kind of burning me right now just because of the recent injury. And this, the best part about the closer grid over at Fantasy Alarm is the amount of work that you watch Joe Gallina put in, because every single day I think there's been an update so far. Today's update was Porter Hodge
Right.
being out and landing on the IL, throwing the Cubs bullpen into like this weird state, because Ryan Presley was passable to start, but you always
Mhm.
figured you had Porter Hodge as like the next guy in there. But Presley's been terrible. Hodge is now hurt. Drew Pomerantz, of all guys, is making a return here, and then Daniel Palencia
Mhm.
is another one there. I mean, are we even thinking of buying into Drew Pomerantz?
What a great story, though. Even if we're not interested in buying into him, the guy, he was out of baseball for 3 seasons, right? 2022 to 2024, multiple injuries.
Yeah.
Um, at this point, he's the primary left-handed arm out of the Cubbies bullpen. So I don't think he's the number one guy there, with Hodge hitting the IL. And, Hodge could be out for a while with an oblique, obliques, depending on how severe they are. You never know. But, I mean, the guy, Pomerantz, back to Pomerantz, um, hasn't given up a run in 10.1 innings pitched so far this season, 11 strikeouts, just 2 walks. I mean, if I'm in a save and hold league, I like him. If it's primarily saves, I would pass. But again, like I said, he's the primary left-handed arm out of the Cubbies bullpen. And if, there's a ninth inning where, two out of the three batters that a Cubs reliever has to face are lefties, then Pomerantz is going to be the guy. I think Presley, he had he had a real rough start. I mean, he had that game against the Giants a few weeks ago where he gave up those 8 earned runs. Lately, been pitching much better, but they're using him seventh and eighth innings lately. But I think that he's going to get the first shot at closing out games. And you mentioned Palencia. Overall, good numbers this season. Came in for a save opportunity on Monday night, blew it.
To the Marlins.
Yeah, of all teams, right? Yeah. So I'm worried about his control long term. I mean, he's already walked 4 batters in 9 innings, has a 5.1 walk per nine for his career. The guy that intrigues me is Brad Keller, and I'm going to move him onto the grid as well.
Really?
Yeah, no, I know, but he only has 2 career saves, and that's something that I do look at. I look at if a reliever has some saves, even if they're in the minor leagues, because at least it shows that he's capable of pitching in high pressure situations. But 2.91 ERA, good whip, 24 Ks in just under 22 innings pitched, 5 holds. And if you got nauseous hearing about Brad Keller, you probably get even sicker when I mention Ryan Brazier, who's close to being
Oh
reinstated off
man.
the IL. Yeah, he's
Wow, that's what about that is a lesser of two evils.
yeah,
I mean, I'd rather have Helen Keller than Brad Keller.
yeah.
But Brazier, oh my lord! I think I remember there was one year a couple of seasons ago where I thought he was going to take over closing for the Red Sox,
Yeah, yeah,
and
exactly. Yeah, I
and
remember
I
that.
think he finished that year with like a 76 ERA or something like that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But supposedly he's doing real well in AAA. 5 appearances, one of them back to back. So the Cubs bullpen is a little bit of a mess, but I think that Presley is the guy who's going to get first shot. And his slider isn't what it used to be, and he's not striking out as many guys as he used to, but he's been pitching better lately. So I guess we have to keep our fingers crossed.
Okay. All right. Jose Alvarado suspended for PEDS. I knew something was up. Come on. It's Jose Alvarado. All of a sudden, suddenly he's unhittable here. Jordan Romano takes the job back. You've got Matt Strahm. You've got Orion Kerkering in there as well. I guess Romano's going to be the guy who's going to get the saves for the time being right now. But would you rather have, if it's saves and holds, would you rather invest in Strahm or Kerkering just for potentially better ratios?
Yeah, I'm interested in Strom, and Strom is going to get his opportunities of getting saves as well. But Romano's going to be the basically as number one a guy as you could have with the Phillies bullpen, because Rob Thompson is known for playing matchups when it comes to his closers. Um, so Romano's going to get most of the opportunities, but Strom's a lefty, and if there's a save opportunity coming up, again, like I mentioned before, if there's a bunch of lefty hitters due up, Strom's going to get the ninth, and Romano might get the eighth or something of that nature. So I do like Strom in holds, saves and holds leagues, but you know not rosterable. But Tanner Banks is another lefty who could take a save opportunity away from Strom. If Strom is unavailable, and Kirkring hasn't been his old self, but he'd be the backup to Romano as another right-hander if Romano is unavailable. But Romano's been Romano had that tough season last year where he got hurt, missed most of it, and been pitching better lately. So again, Thompson loves those matchups, but I think Romano's the number one guy there, as much as you could have a number one guy with the Phillies. But I like Strom, like you mentioned, in saves and holds leagues as well.
Right
And
on.
you ready to get a little nauseous? Lucas Sims, they signed him to a minor league
contract. Good old Lucas Sims. See, listen, again, that's a guy who'll come out for he'll go like 4 or 5 straight scoreless outings, and then he'll do what Presley did to you and give up 8 earned runs in like a third of an inning, right? Or he won't even record an out and screw you over. Joe, what's the bullpen that you're watching the closest right now? Like, I mean, we're not seeing when I look at the closer grid, the top names, in the red and the yellow and the green and the yellow, they're not really changing. We're not seeing that massive turnover as we usually do. We're seeing about 5 or 6 teams who can't seem to figure it out throughout like the injuries and stuff like that. But is there a particular bullpen that you're sitting there, you're watching, what you're getting out of it, you're locking it down, or you're looking at like certain players, like setup guys, thinking these are the guys to invest in? Who's your best bullpen out there?
Are you looking like on a positive level, right? Like, or are you looking for, like you mentioned, a setup guy that has a chance of taking saves?
I mean, if he can take some saves, that would be great. Like there are some vultures out there that I know that you got your eye on.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'll tell you something. And he's in the green though. Mason Miller, one of the elite closers, but the guys behind him, if Miller ever gets hurt, Justin Sterner, Tyler Ferguson, really, really good. So
okay.
I like them.
You don't worry about relievers who call Sutter Health Park for home for half their games. You don't worry about that as much.
Not as much. I mean, so far they've been pitching real well. So it's something to consider. But
okay, definitely.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, I need suggestions here. I'm at my last
Okay.
legs here.
Abner Uribe has really been coming on for the Brewers. McGill has been pitching well too, but if you're looking for like a setup guy, he's real good. Camilo Doval.
Yes.
I mean, when you look at, Ryan Walker really went into a deep funk. Has been pitching better lately, but Doval has had his issues in the past, but so far he's like a new guy. So he's someone. Raisel Iglesias seems to be a little shaky. He got a vote of confidence from his manager recently, but maybe
That's always the kiss of death. Oh, I'm totally
exactly. Yeah.
fine with this guy. I absolutely love him. I'm going to
Yeah.
stick with him.
Yes. Yeah. Maybe a Pierce Johnson, as somebody just like to put on your watch list or whatnot.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I'll tell you that Tiger bullpen, if either Vest or Tommy Canley, Will Vest or Tommy Canley are available, because that's almost like a 50-50 split right now. And they have 31 wins coming into Tuesday's action. The Tigers, I mean, they finished so strong last year, and they're just picking up where they left off. So I have a feeling that Vest might be rostered already, but Canley might not be. And this could be a situation like, you remember like a few years ago before Ryan Helsley became who he is with the Cardinals would always have Giovanni Gallego, who would have like 14 saves. And there'd be like, say, Alex Reyes would have 20. It could be a situation like that with the Tigers, where like Vest has, maybe 22 and Canley has 14, and then maybe like 20 holds. So that's somebody to look at that might be out there.
All right. Well, Joe, thank you so much, man. I appreciate you dropping in here, giving us the little rundown here of the closers grid and everything like that. Anything in particular you got your eye on for the upcoming bullpen report, or is this just going to be? Are we just business as usual here in the bullpens?
Oh, I've got my notes here on my. As the week goes on, I take notes. So we'll definitely have something good for you. And I even updated the grid tonight before we came on, because Chris Martin went on the IL for the Rangers. So maybe you asked me about another guy, maybe Robert Garcia, because
you don't like Luke Jackson?
I do, but with the volatility around, and Jackson just got. I mean, he's pitching, but he got plunked with a comeback or so.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
All right. Well, Joe, I appreciate it very much, man. I thank you so much for stopping on in.
My pleasure.
Yeah, you have yourself a wonderful night, and looking forward to everything that you bring. I mean, what else? Do you have anything else going on as far as content coming out?
Right now, just the closer grid every week. You want to give me more?
Yeah.
Send it on. Send it over.
All right. Done and done. All right. Well, Joe, again, thank you so much for being here, and enjoy the rest of this Yankees game tonight going up against the Texas Rangers.
There you go. Pleasure to be here. Good talking to you. Take care.
All right. Joe Gallina, everybody. You guys find him. Follow him on Twitter at Joe Gallina, JoeGallina. Check out all of his work over there at fantasyalarm.com. All right. As we're kind of moving through here, I wanted to, like I said, I was going to just do like a quick little prospect check-in. And so here it comes. I wish I had like some like flashy intro or something like that for you, but I really don't. Where's Colby when he does the deet with my news report here? But alas. All right, just wanted to kind of chime in about a couple of guys here. Number one, Jordan Lawler. For those of you out there who chase Jordan Lawler, I don't want to say it as that I told you so, because I love the player. I think he's a fantastic prospect. What I said was the timing was absolutely terrible. Because the question is where was he going to play? Ketel Marte was just coming back from the IL. He was playing at second base. Eugenio Suarez continues to hit for power. His batting average does suck, but as long as he's hitting for power and he's plating runs and he's being productive, he's going to keep getting that work at third base. And then Geraldo Perdomo, who they signed, to an extension. I mean, he's hitting right now, which is fantastic. But the reason that he's in the lineup on the regular is because his glove is so good at short, and the Diamondbacks don't want to give up that defense. So while Jordan Lawler is a natural shortstop, you've got the experience of Perdomo. So Lawler's now appeared in only 3 of the 8 games since he got called up. He has yet to log a hit. He's got 5 strikeouts over just 8 at-bats. I mean, this is what everybody was all hype about, right? This is just one of those lessons to kind of learn that if you're budgeting out your fab, you really need to make sure that the guy you're throwing your money on has that clear path. I'm sorry for using it as another example here, but in 2017 with Juan Soto, when he came up, I knew when Juan Soto came up, he had a path to everyday at-bats. That's what made him valuable. Well, I mean, aside from the fact that amazing plate discipline, hits for power, right? Just doesn't steal bases, but great OBP, great power numbers, great production. But it was the playing time. It's the opportunity. You got to always remember that. Opportunity is everything in fantasy. Take a look at the end of your season, or even go back to last season's stats, and you look at everybody's offense. The team that has the most at-bats is probably the team that's sitting there in first place, right? Because they've got the guys who are seeing the opportunities to put runs up on the board, to pad that stat sheet, whatever the case may be. Right? You look at their innings pitched, you look at their at-bats. That's what you're kind of looking for, especially in a rotisserie format. So Jordan Lawler, I mean, unless there's an injury, I don't really see him doing much else. If you're needing that roster spot, I say you drop him. Moises Ballesteros, everybody was paying money for him at the catcher position. He's already back down in the minors. It was just a temporary situation. And he was DHing, which is not something that big league managers want their rookies to be doing, unless you're talking about a guy who is strictly a hitter. But Ballesteros, you want to, work him behind the plate. You want to develop that ability in him. With the way Carson Kelly's performing right now, you're definitely not going to, move Ballesteros in there. So he's already demoted to the minors. The Cubs did bring back Matt Shaw, which I love. The dude posted a 960 OPS, 6 home runs, 5 stolen bases, only 11 strikeouts to 17 walks when he went down to AAA. All right, his first game back, 2 hits, 1 double, and he stole a base. And he's got the ability to play third base on the regular. That's what it is. He's got that path. So if Matt Shaw is still sitting there on your waiver wire, you're going to want to make sure that you go in and that you grab him. Now, a rookie who has not been panning out as well as we had hoped in the beginning, Cam Smith of the Houston Astros. Now, it's been a rough road, definitely, because I tell you what, man, I was all in. I was 100% hyped up for him as a oh, look at that. My lovely assistant bringing me water. Do I need water? Is that what you're saying? Do I sound harsh? Do I sound... She said, I'm choking on my words. I'm choking on my own spit. Cam Smith, Houston Astros. The bottom line is that he hasn't been hitting. Will he be a guy who develops? Can he be like this year's Wyatt Langford? Remember, Langford last year for the Texas Rangers, absolutely terrible in the first half. Second half, beautiful. So I had some super sleuthing done by Jim Bowden, who reached out to Dana Brown, the GM of the Houston Astros. And according to Dana Brown, Cam Smith has no intention of sending Cam Smith back down to the minors. He says he still likes what he sees from him, says he's still learning, says he's still developing, but he loves the player enough to say that this is a kid who can definitely turn things around. So I'm keeping Cam Smith stashed away on some benches, and I'm going to hold on to him, and I'll just trickle him in there. And just to show you I'm not down on all these rookies here, Augustin Ramirez, this dude's been money in the bank, right? Currently riding a 5-game hit streak. He's playing every day, slashing 267, 337, 593, over 86 at-bats. I mean, if there's one thing to smile about with the Marlins, it is Augustin Ramirez. Is he going to keep up this pace the entire time? No, maybe not. there's not a lot around him. The Marlins will probably start selling off components like Jesus Sanchez or Sandy Alcantara, and they'll start in their tank mode. But Ramirez is definitely going to be a guy that they're going to hold on to, and we'll use him behind the plate. Chandler Simpson. What I love about Chandler, listen, he's got 11 stolen bases and he's batting .301. He's riding a 6-game hit streak right now. He's playing every day. He just got back from a quick little hand injury. But this is the guy that we want, right? Because he steals bases, but he's also hitting well. The 327 OBP could be a little bit higher. I would like to see that, but you're not getting any power from Chandler Simpson. That's not your goal there. If you need stolen bases for some reason, if you want to make an offer to somebody, if Chandler Simpson is still available in your league where you're only in a 10-teamer and maybe he's sitting out there, that's definitely a possibility as well. So there you go. A little bit of a rookie update, some closer talk, and a little Paul Skenes small market sadness for all you Pittsburgh Pirates fans out there. Next week, it won't be Colby Conway again, but I do have a very good surprise guest for you. I'm not going to reveal it right now, but if you're a fantasy baseball junkie, you know this guy, you love this guy. He's probably one of the smartest people I know, not just in fantasy, but reality too. So thank you so much for staying tuned in here. We appreciate you guys joining us here at the Caught Stealing podcast. For a big thank you again to Joe Gallina for dropping by. I'm Howard Bender. This has been Caught Stealing, and we'll catch you next time.